In the Australian desert, kangaroos have learned to watch the trucks go by, or rather, trucks that look like trains. Two types of drivers share the tracks, and the marsupial is not invited to the party. There are the go-getters that nothing can stop, like Russell.
We don't seem to worry too much about kangaroos. It's, well, cattle can damage the truck, but also a beast like these could be worth $2,000 to $3,000 to the station owner. So the last thing we want to do is kill one of his cows.
And then there are the kangaroo hunters. On the tracks, Timmy is on the lookout. He does not hesitate to accelerate when a good opportunity appears in front of his bumper.
We're fighting it. Kangaroo. I'll get it, put it in the car, go home, cook it. My family eat. It's gonna eat. Beautiful, beautiful tucker.
Australia is not just an island, it's a continent, 14 times bigger than France. The second most developed country in the world, at least in the south and the east. The north and the centre remain wild. To connect these two different worlds, giant trucks are constantly travelling over Australia's most remote roads and trails. Between the south and the north of this island continent, two opposing ways of life coexist. One is that of the English settlers who arrived in the 19th century, one that never stops spreading. The other belongs to the Aboriginal people, trying to preserve their culture that has existed for 50,000 years. Before crossing the desert or the bush, it's best to plan your trip. The Australian tracks are full of dangers and surprises. It's a paradise, unspoiled by the modern world. We're in the north of Australia, in the territory of the Yolngu tribe. They're the fiercest defenders of the Aboriginal culture. Their entire life is based on tradition, which is not to say they refuse all of the comforts of the modern world. Their village, Bauerkane, does not feature on any map, but there is, however, electricity. Timmy dreams of a brand new car. His is in a pitiful condition, but for the moment he has to make do with the means that the community provides.
We got no battery, truck battery, so I'm going to try and fix it. Well, I'm going to the ceremony. I've got ceremony to do. Meet my tribe, my mother tribe clan groups. So I'm going there. Someone, actually, family passed away. It's a little twins baby.
The majority of Aboriginal people are unemployed. Like Timmy, most live off government support, a sort of compensation for colonisation. Old cars provide spare parts. For these pickups with their inconceivable mileage, simple mechanics isn't enough to get them going. At least not in Timmy's car. To stack the odds in his favour, he calls the mechanics on the other side, the spirits of his ancestors. The Aboriginal territories have very few tarmac roads. The funeral ceremony he is attending is taking place in Barkira, 200 kilometres of sand and track. Almost a 10-hour journey if everything goes well. And it begins badly. The black smoke rising in the distance doesn't look good. As it goes further, the air becomes pungent. The smell that is tickling his nostrils suggests the worst. The bush is on fire. The flames swallow up the plants on both sides of the trail. In the dry season, it's often lightning that sets off the blaze.
A big fire came. I was driving one day. Saw big ones. All the trees fell down. Fire coming. Then I turned around, went back again, wait for the tree, chopped the tree, then ran there, more fire coming.
This fire has now been burning for 2 days and there's no one to stop it. Australia is a country of fantastic proportions. The Aborigines' territory spreads over nearly 1 million hectares, but has only 3 inhabitants per square kilometre. And so, by the time the firemen have been alerted, they often arrive too late and the fire has had the time to grow and become more powerful. Every year, flames devastate kilometres of bush and sometimes even villages. Today, Jimmy isn't too worried. Luckily, there is practically no wind and the fire spreads slowly. He has time to get out of the blaze. The water won't be an obstacle for the flames. However, for Timmy's old 4x4, it's another story. Going from one village to another in Australia is an epic journey. Its great landscapes are untouched by the West. Only the Aboriginal people have the right to cross their territory. Non-Aboriginal people have to ask for special authorisation. Otherwise, they risk ending up in jail. And these are not empty threats, as this sign indicates. There is a strong rejection of Westerners in this remote region. This piece of land was snatched from the settlers. After bloody battles, epidemics caused by European illnesses and the ravages of alcohol, the Aboriginal people, who were nearly 1 million in the 18th century, are now only 366,000. Today, they're divided among the various reserves which have been granted to them by the government.
They told me, like, when they first saw white people, they were confused, saying, who's these people? They thought it was a ghost. Before they came, I think they killed Aboriginal people, Yolngu people, right across. They killed them and then they took the land off them.
He's now been on the road for 3 hours.
We're gonna get bored. Then we're gonna do.
The track becomes more and more challenging. When he gets stuck in the sand, Timmy takes a lesson inherited from the English sang-froid. Stay calm in all circumstances. If he accelerates too quickly, the wheel will sink even more. On the other hand, gently and with a bit of patience, whatever the state of the road, Timmy has to get through at all costs. Without him, the ceremony won't take place. The tribe has elected him traditional chief.
That's the name of the duty. My duty is Chungaya. It's meaning looking out for our elders, looking out for the law. Tribes comes and, come together, ceremonies and dancing, teaching young kids, remember the lives, remember our ancestors. It's very important.
In these forgotten lands, a simple stop can end in disaster. Toilet stops must be done on high alert. Crocodiles are never far from the tracks that run along the ocean front. Even though the government has offered, the Aboriginal people refuse to have their trails tarmacked. They make their lives more complicated and make it more difficult to visit neighbouring villages, but they respect the land. The bush is the same as that of their ancestors. Unlike the landscapes that can be found 2,500 kilometres to the south, the contrast is striking. In the middle of the desert, an island of modernity, Alice Springs. The city was born in the 19th century. At that time, it was supplied by caravans of camels which were imported from Afghanistan. Today, the camel colour has been replaced by sparkling chrome. These beasts no longer run on water, they are thirsty for petrol. These unusual trucks pull 3 trailers and 100 tons of goods, the equivalent of 300 camels. Because of their interminable length of 53 metres, Australians have nicknamed them road trains. Kevin is conveying a load of bricks to Alice Springs. 1,400 kilometres of asphalt that he attacks at full speed. The road train is this young 27-year-old driver's vocation.
Truck driver, and when I was about 9 years old I went for a trip with him, and ever since then I've just been obsessed with trucks.
600 horsepower engines carry the biggest trucks in the world and their 100 tons of goods at average speeds of 80 kilometres an hour. But driving these monsters requires keeping a cool head.
Takes a lot longer to speed up, takes a lot longer to slow down. You gotta be always looking out for kangaroos, cows, other cars. You gotta be careful with your steering, if you on the steering wheel too much. Just driving slow, trying to get the best fuel economy and checking tyres, checking the load every couple of hours, just making sure it's all still strapped on tight and gets there to the customer, not damaged.
Road train drivers don't just use their tyres on the tarmac. The potholed tracks of the bush are a part of their daily routine.
This time going bush, went through a river crossing and got stuck on the ramp coming out. And there's crocodiles in the water. I was stuck there for about 7 hours till a grader came down to the community, hooked on and pulled us out of the river. It's good unless you break down on the side of the road in summer. It can get a little bit scary then, the heat, and if you haven't got all the water and food with you, you can get in a lot of trouble pretty quickly.
These steel monsters cost a small fortune, around €1 million. So in order to make them profitable, the trucks never stop moving. The transport companies hire out the vehicles. Once he's arrived in Alice Springs, Kevin goes to rest, but not his truck. Once it's unloaded, it gets away from the tarmac. It's in new hands. Here is the new master on board, Russell, nicknamed the Scrapyard King of the Desert. At this time, it's certain the road train will defeat the desert. He can be found outside Alice Springs, where he has one of the biggest scrapyards in the region. Thousands of tyres and cars are piled up here, a trove of rubber and steel which is a source of envy in the region.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago we had an arson attack. Set fire to a grader, one pile of cars here, then another bigger pile down here, and then a third pile of cars just a little bit further around the corner. Totally unnecessary. They were going to be crushed anyway, but yeah, I was very lucky. Got like within 20 feet of the car crusher here. I would have been devastated if this old girl had burned.
Even if it's by far not his main concern, this old trucker is environmentally friendly in his own way. He collects the old wrecks that litter the desert. The residents of the region have become accustomed to abandoning their irreparable or old cars there. Russell had to hire a truck because the last time he ventured into the bush, it was very costly. The heat caused the motor of his road train to explode.
As all trucks are, they're right on their limit, everything. The diffs are red hot, the gearbox is red hot, the motor is red hot. Pulling over 100 tonne, sometimes more, in 50-degree heat on some of the worst roads in Australia. So it's a punishment. Every time they go out, they're getting punished.
Russell is a sort of Dr. Frankenstein, the only difference being that he gives life with the mechanical organs he's salvaged. He has made this incredible machine, a transportable car compactor.
This machine here we manufactured ourselves. It compacts cars so that we can get maximum weight onto a semi-trailer. We designed this machine for the Outback. What it has the ability to do is lift itself off of this trailer And then that leaves the trailer available to bring back 30-odd abandoned cars. Mainly the components are out of a 30-tonne excavator, the engine, the hydraulic pumps.
This unique machine is like something straight out of a Mad Max film. It needs to be checked before each trip, as it's just a little bit temperamental. It works. Now all that's left is to assemble the 3 trailers, which isn't easy.
And then I got to move some stuff they've dumped in front of one trailer, take a fridge off, get that trailer ready.
With everything cleared, there is just the electric ramp to start up. A good tap on the battery, and it works.
On the front trailer here, we have our front end loader with forklift attachment. This we use to pick up the cars.
Attaching the trailers requires a lot of skill and, above all, good judgment.
We're just putting a few warning flags on here. It's only a little bit over width, but we'll just let the people know that it's big. There's a fair bit involved getting them all hooked up and then making sure all the airlines are correct. Just got to make sure I don't forget anything.
After 3 hours of manoeuvring, the convoy is ready to leave.
Rightio, let's go and smash some cars.
10 a.m. and the heat has already crushed the last cool breezes of the morning. 40 degrees in the shade and the temperature is still to increase. Russell hopes the mechanics of his rental truck won't suffer in the desert. The scrapyard's best clients are the Aboriginal villages. With the poverty that reigns there, their surroundings overflow with old car wrecks. Every time he goes, Russell checks to see if there is a ceremony or a burial. Otherwise, his wallet risks taking a blow. The Aboriginal people have imposed very specific rules for the road, and they are very strict, especially when the road crosses a sacred site.
Lawmakers in the surroundings want to close the road, saying you can't go there because it's strict. There must be a risk management. You know? It's a code of conduct for the law.
And make sure you're paying attention. The Aboriginal people have the highest fines in the world. This sign tells drivers that they'd better make a detour or risk paying a fine of nearly 15,000 euros. For the Aboriginal people, spirits created nature and the elements. These spirits still circulate in certain places. A forest, a mountain can be proof of their passage.
Special for this land and a special for Yolngu people where we have called sacred sites. But that sacred site could be a hill, a land, boundaries, rocks, trees. In that land, it talks about the significance of that culture. Sacred sites are very, it's like you respect the land. You can't kill the land. You can't kill that, the Mother Earth. Instead of we own the land owns us. Very, very important. Because land is part of you. When you kill the land, you die.
Timmy has been driving for 10 hours without air conditioning under a blazing sun. Tiredness is starting to kick in and his eyelids are heavy. He loses his concentration. He starts to zigzag dangerously. These signs announce safety ahead.
We're arriving to the salmon area. This place called Compactor. So we're gonna go and dance to the family.
The funeral ceremony is planned for the following morning. The village where the funeral is taking place is one of the most isolated villages in Australia. To make it more accessible, the villagers have mapped out this landing strip, but very few pilots dare to risk it. Bakira remains as remote as ever, far from civilization. The village only has a dozen families, no hotels or bed and breakfasts. Tents have been set up to house the guests of the funeral ceremony. Bakira isn't really a little corner of paradise, especially since the inhabitants have to fight with ferocious mosquitoes over this dusty spot. Since being converted in the 20th century, the bush spirits are happy to mix with the saints and rites of the Christian religion.
But I don't know, hanging in a cross. We are free because you, Jesus, you set us free.
Timmy's family mourn the loss of two babies. The mother and older sister dance in honor of the lost children. The plastic bottles that they carry symbolize the two deceased. Before the English arrived, the Yolngu had a different way of honoring their dead.
In olden days, they used to put it in a bag, like bag, and leave it there. They don't dig graves. Put it in a bag for a couple of days, weeks, until skin, everything's gone. They come back for bones. They collect the bones. Maybe 1 year. They come back, collect the bones, put it back into the special log.
After reading the gospel, tradition takes over again. The tribe begins the dance of the dead to contact the lost twins.
listen to the earth because there's a spirit. The land is the spirit. Land talking to people. Currently are good things, good life, good living, good movement. But in your dream, or in the spirit, they can come, or they can talk to you. A couple of years, the spirit start to move. And sometimes that spirit come back like telling you that something good thing coming up.
The chanting will last all night, man and spirit in perfect harmony. Early morning on the edge of the Gibson Desert. There is a light wind from Alice Springs trying to cool the temperature. Unless this breeze is the spirit of an ancestor who's going home, or turbulence from the portable scrapyard which is tearing up the trail, foot to the floor.
Once we venture off of the main roads and head out onto the what we call the dirt roads, or the Outback tracks, our main companion is our fellow road train drivers. The slightest hint of trouble or mechanical dramas, we rely heavily on our mates pulling up to lend a hand. If we didn't have that comradeship, it would be extremely difficult to operate these road trains in these harsh outback conditions.
The desert still holds some unpleasant surprises for travellers. Like this device, which seems like a lifeline, ready to bring a smile to any desperate broken-down motorist's face. This old telephone in the middle of nowhere hasn't worked for a long time. If you have a problem, it's better to rely on a good CB radio.
Either do it now, or the next one after this hill is that big sand hill.
After 200 kilometres on the tracks, Russell reaches the first wreckage that he's heading for. A car accident that took place several months ago.
I'll move them back onto the third trailer, put my loader back on, and I'll go further down the road and find a few more. Closely with the Aboriginal people. The cars that are in the dump are clearly finished with. Sometimes they're in their yards or on the surrounding streets or over behind a tree. Usually I go directly to a community, which would be at the end of this road, and then I'll either have another truck with me and he will collect 100 cars, or I will take all of my equipment off and I will put 100 cars on my road train and I will go home and then unload them, and then I'll go back and collect my equipment or more cars.
The next wreck can be found 100 kilometres away. According to Russell, if he hadn't opened a garage as well as the scrapyard, he would already have closed down. Selling metal does not bring in enough money. He'd like the region to declare him as a public service provider. After all, clearing the desert of its wrecks is beneficial for everybody.
We need to be subsidised to make a living out of this. When the times are good, when a car like this gets to Adelaide, it is worth maybe $200. If the times aren't good, and Adelaide is a long way away. There's 1,600, 1,700, sometimes as far as 2,000 kilometres we have to carry these cars before we can sell them. I've been self-employed most of my life. It's either involved fixing road trains, buying and selling road trains, driving road trains. It was a combination of all of that that led me to manufacturing my own equipment, repairing and operating this whole business.
The road train's 500 horsepower engine roars like a lion. Far away from this uproar is the silence of the Bawaka village's beaches. After the baby's funeral, Timmy returned home. He and other members of his tribe are trying to fish for the evening meal with these strange cries.
We're calling to the great ancestors so they can hear us voice that we're calling to them to give us some fish. It sounds like it's a good luck calling for the great ancestors to hear us voice and give us some fish.
The spirit of the ancestors started Timmy's car, and this time it seems to have guided their spears. The Yolngu's fishing technique has been the same for thousands of years.
We'll have a lunch. Small trevally. We cook it.
The turquoise water beckons you in to swim, but in this part of Australia it's better to spend as little time as possible in the water.
Stingray. We call it kurikpi. I just caught it. As you can see, spear mark. The dangerous is sharp bit the barb from the tail. That's very dangerous. It's poison. The barb bit is very, very poisonous. Can get very painful for that.
And not only that, the poison can be deadly for the weakest. In the water, the hunter becomes the prey.
Sharks all over the land, crocodile as well. But for us, we never cares about it, and we just hunt for those fish and other animals. We never worry. I never worry.
The crab and the few fish they've caught won't feed the whole group. The fishermen head deeper into the mangrove. This is where the biggest prey can be found, but also a fearsome predator.
Crocodiles is back this way. Sometimes it's in there. But because we have to really careful, it's really, really dangerous. If you play around in a territory, they'll come and bite you. They can go and get fish, mostly fish. And sometimes, like, if they're lucky, they can get buffalo, they can get, you know, they're gonna get dingoes, they're gonna get kangaroo, if they're very, very lucky.
In these quiet and well-stocked waters far from the modern world, the crocodiles have plenty of time to grow. Some of them are over 6 meters long and weigh almost 700 kilograms.
Crocodile is dangerous, but you have to learn to live with crocodile for many thousands of years. If you tease crocodile, you don't believe crocodile can kill you. If you play around with the crocodile, you can't.
This enormous animal, which likes to graze on the algae at the bottom of the sea, is almost the size of a crocodile. Nothing that would scare the reptile.
This is dugong, seal cow. Crocodile been eating this. Very big and strong.
Timmy hasn't found any fish in the mangrove. The crocodiles seem to have cleaned up. For the Yolngu, crocodiles are far from being the enemy. In some ways, they are even part of the same family. The spirits of the dead, of ancestors, are sometimes reincarnated in these animals. The culture of their ancestors is passed on through chants and dances. Today, it's a teenager who is initiated to the dance of the crocodile. It's impossible to know which of the tribe's stories it's telling. Perhaps this dance explains how to talk to the crocodiles. The Aborigines believe in telepathy. According to them, it's a means for speaking to the animals from a distance.
I could see crocodile. I could talk to the crocodiles. You saw here today, it's the oldest culture in the world. Didgeridoo, clapsticks, and sounds. Fire tells you the statement, what you believe in, what you see. Fire actually tells you your philosophy of thinking. See today, it's a library, bush library. Each one of these you saw. When you see it, this is the layers. The layers is written, our ancestors. It's written for 70,000 years. Where we want to share this. We want to share our beliefs, our thoughts to the dominant world.
Now they just have to wait for the crocodiles to come out of the water. Have they heard the tribe's calls? This little shark will make the perfect bait. It will convince even the most hesitant crocodile to join the noise of the chants. Nothing left to do but be patient. Australia looks like a film from the far west. Several parts of the continent are still virgin territories. Russell drives like a conqueror at the wheel of his road train, as if pushed by a strong wind.
These roads are just like they were 100 years ago. It's like dirt, not many people travelling on them. Any sort of troubles you could have, you could break things. This is just totally different travelling to in the cities or on the coast. Bitumen road is nicer to drive on, but there's a lot more people using them. Yeah, I just prefer to drive out here. For instance, if I want to stop, I don't have to wait for any traffic or see who's coming or going. I'll just pull up.
After his crocodile dance, the young man enters the water to show his bravery. But then, what would he be afraid of? During the dance, he spoke to the crocodile and the animal seemed prepared not to hurt him. But the young man remains careful and stays away from the shore. The animal heard his call.